I spent $400 in 11 days building something you can buy on Amazon for 20 bucks. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. Because what I ended up holding in my hand wasn't just a power bank, it was proof of something most people never stop to think about. Somewhere between a cheap plastic brick and a mass-produced factory product, there's a hidden cost nobody talks about. A cost that has nothing to do with money. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to look at every gadget in your house completely differently. But before we get into that, if you're new here, hit subscribe right now, because what I'm about to show you is going to change how you think about manufacturing, value, and the real price of convenience. It started with a simple frustration. I was tired of power banks that felt disposable. You buy one, it swells up after a year, the plastic cracks, the charging port wiggles loose, and you throw it away without a second thought. That's the entire business model. Companies don't want you to keep a power bank forever. They want you to replace it. And that got me thinking about something bigger than just a gadget. It got me thinking about planned obsolescence, about how an entire industry is built on things breaking just fast enough to keep you buying. So I decided to build one that wouldn't break, not because I needed a power bank. I already had 3 sitting in a drawer. I built it because I wanted to understand what it actually costs, in time, in money, in effort, to make something that lasts. And the material I chose says everything about that mission. Aluminum, not plastic, not some flimsy alloy. Solid, CNC machined aluminum cut down from a block on a machine that removes 90% of the material just to leave behind the 2% that matters. Here's where it gets interesting, because this is where the economics come in. A CNC machine doesn't care about your budget. It doesn't care that you're a guy in a garage trying to build something cool. It charges by the hour, by the material, by the complexity of the cut. And aluminum stock isn't cheap either. When I priced out a single block big enough for the body of this power bank, I was already looking at more money than 10 plastic power banks combined. And that's before a single cut was made. I remember sitting there, staring at the quote from the machine shop, doing the math in my head, and thinking, this makes absolutely no financial sense. And that's exactly the point I want you to sit with for a second. Because so much of what surrounds us, the phone in your pocket, the laptop on your desk, even the chair you're sitting on exists because someone somewhere decided that cheap and fast mattered more than good and lasting. We don't even question it anymore. We just accept that things break, that things get replaced, that things are disposable. I wanted to build one small object that pushed back against that, just to see what it would take. The design process alone took longer than I expected. I'm not a professional engineer. I had to learn how to use CAD software from scratch, watching tutorials at midnight, redoing the same wall thickness 5 or 6 times because it kept coming out either too thin to survive machining or too thick to fit the internal battery cells. Every millimeter mattered. Too much material and the whole thing becomes a brick you don't want to carry. Too little and the aluminum walls crack under the machine's cutting pressure before you even get to hold the finished part. And here's something nobody tells you about working with metal instead of plastic. Plastic forgives mistakes. You can injection mold a slightly imperfect design and it still works fine. Metal does not forgive anything. A design flaw that would be invisible in plastic becomes a $500 mistake in aluminum, because by the time you realize the tolerance is wrong, the material is already cut, and there's no way to add metal back once it's been removed. I made that mistake, twice. The first prototype had walls just barely too thin around the USB-C port, and the moment I applied any pressure while plugging in a cable, I could feel the whole thing flex in my hand. Not good enough. Scrapped it. The second attempt, I overcorrected, made the walls too thick, and the internal battery cell physically would not fit inside the cavity I had machined. Scrapped that too. At this point I had spent real money on 2 paperweights, and I hadn't even gotten to the electronics yet. But here's the thing that kept me going, and this is the part I think matters most. Every failure taught me something that no tutorial could have taught me. You can watch 100 videos about tolerances and wall thickness. I said, but until you hold a cracked piece of aluminum in your hand, knowing you paid for that mistake with real money, the lesson doesn't actually sink in. There's a difference between knowing something and understanding it. And understanding always costs more. By the 3rd attempt, something changed. I had learned to think like the material. Aluminum doesn't want to be plastic. It has its own rules, its own weight, its own way of handling stress and heat. Once I stopped fighting those rules and started designing around them, the 3rd version came together almost effortlessly compared to the first 2. The walls were the right thickness. The battery slid in perfectly. The ports lined up. For the first time in this entire process, I felt like I was building something instead of guessing. I want you to remember that feeling, because it's going to come back later in the story in a way you won't expect. Because building the shell was only step 1. What happened next, when I actually tried to bring this thing to life electrically, is where things got a lot more complicated than I ever imagined. And it's where the real cost of doing things properly instead of cheaply started to show itself in ways I never saw coming. With the aluminum shell finally sitting right in my hands, I thought the hard part was over. I was wrong. Because a power bank isn't just a metal box. Inside that box has to live a battery management system, charging circuitry, a battery cell, and wiring that all has to fit inside a space I had already committed to in metal. Unlike plastic, where you can always sand down a tight spot or heat form a wall to make a little more room, aluminum gives you nothing. What I designed on the computer screen weeks earlier was now the permanent, unchangeable reality I had to work within. The first problem showed up almost immediately: heat. Metal conducts heat incredibly well, which sounds like a good thing until you realize that also means it conducts heat away from sensitive electronics in ways plastic never would. A charging circuit that ran perfectly fine inside a cheap plastic power bank started behaving strangely inside the aluminum shell. It would get warmer than expected during fast charging, and for a moment, I genuinely thought I had built an expensive brick that might damage a phone instead of charging it. That sent me down a research hole that took days. I read about thermal conductivity, about how aluminum actually dissipates heat faster than plastic in most situations, which should have been a benefit, not a problem. And that's when I realized the real issue wasn't the aluminum at all. It was contact. The internal circuit board was touching the metal shell directly in one small spot, and that direct metal-to-metal contact was creating a heat pathway that was affecting the voltage regulation. A problem that would never have existed in a plastic shell was now staring me in the face because I chose the harder material. The fix ended up being almost embarrassingly simple once I found it. A tiny piece of thermal insulating film, cut by hand, placed exactly between the circuit board and the aluminum wall. 5 cents worth of material solved a problem that had taken 3 days and a small amount of quiet panic to diagnose. And that taught me something I think applies far beyond power banks or CNC machining. The most expensive part of building anything isn't usually the material or the tool, it's the diagnosis. It's the hours spent figuring out what's actually wrong before you can fix it. Anyone can spend money on parts. Figuring out which part is lying to you, that's the real cost of craftsmanship. Once the heat issue was solved, I moved on to the part I had honestly been dreading the most, which was wireless charging. I wanted this power bank to charge itself just by setting it on a charging pad. No cables required. Sounds simple enough on paper. Then you remember that wireless charging works through electromagnetic induction, and metal enclosures are notoriously bad at letting electromagnetic fields pass through them cleanly. Aluminum, being highly conductive, interferes with the very technology I was trying to build into it. This is the point where a lot of people would have given up and gone back to a plastic shell or dropped the wireless charging feature completely. I almost did. I spent an entire evening reading forum posts from other makers who had run into the exact same wall, some of them concluding it simply wasn't possible to get clean wireless charging through a solid aluminum enclosure without significant efficiency loss. But a few posts mentioned something interesting: creating a precise cutout in the aluminum thin enough to maintain structural integrity, but positioned exactly where the wireless charging coil needed clear passage. That meant going back to the CNC machine for round 3, which meant more cost, more time, and more risk of another expensive mistake. I remember hesitating for a long time before sending that file off, because at this point I had already spent significantly more than I had originally budgeted, and there was no guarantee this modification would even work. But I sent it anyway, because stopping now would have meant admitting that cheap and easy always wins, and something in me refused to accept that. The modified shell came back with a section carved out with millimeter precision. And when I finally set the assembled power bank down on a wireless charging pad for the first time, watching for that little indicator light to confirm a connection, I don't think I've held my breath that long in years. It connected. Not instantly, and not as efficiently as a plastic-shelled power bank would have, but it worked. Real electricity flowing wirelessly through a shell that, by every conventional rule of physics, should have blocked it entirely. That moment changed something for me, because up until then, this whole project had felt like an expensive, stubborn exercise in doing things the hard way just to prove a point. But watching that charging light turn on, knowing what it took to get there, the failed prototypes, the cracked walls, the thermal issue, the forum research, the second trip to the machine shop, it stopped feeling like stubbornness and started feeling like something closer to mastery. Not because I'm some expert engineer, I'm not, but because I had taken something that didn't work over and over again, and through pure persistence, made it work. There's an economic lesson buried in all of this that I didn't expect to find when I started. We live in a world that optimizes almost everything for speed and cost. And most of the time, that's actually the right choice. Nobody needs their toaster to be CNC machined from aircraft-grade aluminum. But somewhere along the way, we stopped even considering the alternative. We stopped asking what it would take to build something meant to last 20 years instead of 2. This project became my way of answering that question for myself, one mistake at a time, one wasted piece of metal at a time, until something finally worked the way it was supposed to. By the time the wireless charging issue was solved, I still had one major hurdle left: the final assembly. Getting a battery cell, a circuit board, wiring, magnets, and a coil all sealed inside a metal shell with tolerances so tight that even a fraction of a millimeter of misalignment would mean the whole thing simply wouldn't close. And that final step, the one I assumed would be the easiest part of the entire process, turned out to teach me the most important lesson of the whole build. Final assembly day arrived, and I remember feeling almost relaxed about it. In my head, this was the easy part. The hard engineering was done, the heat problem was solved, the wireless charging worked. All that was left was putting the pieces together, like the final step of a puzzle where you already know exactly where every piece goes. I laid everything out on my workbench in order. The aluminum shell, the battery cell, the circuit board with its little thermal film patch, the wireless charging coil, a small bag of tiny screws. I felt confident. That confidence lasted about 4 minutes. The first sign of trouble was the battery cell itself. On the computer, in the CAD file, it fit with a couple of millimeters of clearance on every side. In real life, batteries aren't perfectly uniform rectangles. This one had a slight bulge near one edge, something so small you'd never notice it holding the battery in your hand, but enough that it refused to slide into a cavity machine to exact digital specifications. Plastic shells forgive this kind of thing because plastic has a small amount of give. Aluminum has none. What fits is what fits, and what doesn't fit simply doesn't fit, no matter how much gentle pressure you apply. I sat there for a moment just staring at it, this tiny fraction of a millimeter standing between me and finishing a project that had already taken over a week of failures, redesigns, and unexpected detours. And I want to be honest with you, in that moment, I was frustrated in a way that had nothing to do with money or time anymore. It was personal. I had chased down every problem this build had thrown at me, and now the very last step was being blocked by something as small and stupid as a battery being a hair too wide. So I did the only thing I could do. I very carefully, very slowly, used a fine sanding tool to remove an amount of aluminum so small it's honestly hard to describe in words. Less than the thickness of a piece of paper. Test fit. Still tight. Sand a little more. Test fit again. This process repeated probably 15 times before the battery finally slid into place with the kind of satisfying click that made every single failed attempt over the past week and a half feel worth it. From there, the rest of the assembly actually went smoothly, which felt almost suspicious after everything that had gone wrong up to that point. The circuit board seated correctly. The thermal film stayed exactly where it needed to be. The wireless charging coil aligned with the cutout I had machined specifically for it. And when I finally tightened the last tiny screw and held the completed power bank in my hand for the first time, fully assembled, fully functional, I genuinely didn't know what to feel first. Relief, pride. A strange kind of disbelief that this thing, which had existed only as failed prototypes and cracked metal and frustrated late nights just days earlier, was now a real, solid working object sitting in my palm. I plugged in my phone. It charged. I set it on the wireless pad. It charged. I left it on my desk for the rest of the day, picking it up every so often just to feel the weight of it, the coolness of real aluminum instead of the light, hollow feel of plastic. And I kept coming back to the same thought. This tiny object in my hand cost me more money, more time, and more frustration than any power bank reasonably should. And yet, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Because somewhere in that process, I stopped building a power bank and started understanding something about the world that most of us never stop to think about. We are surrounded by things built to the absolute minimum standard required to function just long enough to sell you the next one. And most of the time, we don't even notice, because that's simply how the world works now. Fast, cheap, disposable. But every once in a while, it's worth asking what the alternative actually costs. Not in theory, not in some article you skim past. In real hours, real mistakes, real money spent on things that broke before they ever worked. That's the price of doing something properly instead of doing it easily. And most of the time, that price is so high that nobody bothers to pay it. I paid it. Not because it made financial sense. It didn't. But because I wanted to know what was on the other side of that decision. And now I know. This power bank will probably never be sold. It will never be mass-produced. It exists as exactly one object in the entire world, sitting on my desk. A physical reminder that things can be built to last if someone is simply willing to pay the real cost of building them that way. And honestly, that might be the most valuable thing that came out of this entire project. Not the power bank itself, but the understanding of just how much invisible effort separates a cheap disposable product from something built with intention. So here's what I want to ask you. Think about the last thing you owned that broke faster than it should have. Think about whether you've ever wondered what it would actually take to build something meant to last, instead of something meant to be replaced. I want to hear about it. Drop a comment below and tell me the most disposable, frustrating product you've ever owned, the one that made you think there has to be a better way to build this. I read every single comment, and I genuinely want to know your stories. And if this video made you think differently, even for a moment, about the objects around you, do me a favor and share it with one person who would find this interesting. Not for the algorithm, not for numbers, but because conversations like this are worth spreading. This channel is built on exactly this kind of thinking, questioning the systems, the costs, and the decisions hidden behind everyday things. If that sounds like something you want more of, make sure you're subscribed, because there's a lot more of this coming. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. I'll see you in the next one.